I offer my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I pray to Swami that He gives us all the understanding. It's He who speaks, and it is He who listens for all of us. Elders, sisters and brothers, salam to all of you. Hope you've all had a heavy lunch. Because my material today is so heavy, I might sleep delivering it. So let's see. Once I was invited to give a talk to the young adults from Malaysia, and the topic was Face the Devil. And it was just after their dinner. And I said, the first devil you're all going to face is how to overcome sleep. But let's see. There's always a balance that we need to strike between being interesting and being as true to Swami's message as possible. So in the course, if I'm going to lose a few of you, I think I'll have to live with that. I'm going to start with a very beautiful story, an incident which happened in the portico of Prashantanilayam, a very profound one, where Swami, as usual, was walking up and down the portico, speaking to some of the students, some of the elders there. There was this elderly gentleman. I think he was from South America, and he was very active in Swami's organization. And of course, he was a very successful businessman too. So he had come with, of course, I guess, his report of what is happening in that part of the world. And Swami was going through that, and he was giving all the works which were happening. And then, of course, he also told about what's happening in his business and his personal life. And Swami surprised him with a question. Swami said, "How is your sadhana going on?" That shouldn't be a surprise. After all, the spiritual master, that's the most essential question that he needs to be asking and we need to be answering. But we sometimes are so lost that that seems to be a question that's out of syllabus. Swami asked him, "So how's your sadhana going on?" And then this gentleman said, "Swami, I have no time for sadhana." He said, "I don't have no time for spiritual practices." So he said, "Why? Why is it that you don't have any time?" And he said, "Swami, I'm extremely busy in your mission." Right? He said, "Swami, I'm extremely busy in your mission because I'm probably the center president, I'm the director, I'm the convener, whatever it is." He said, "I'm busy with all of this, I'm busy with your mission." Swami gave a very surprised look and he said, "What is my mission?" He said, "What is my mission? That's interesting, you talking about my mission to me." So Swami asked, "What is Swami's mission?" This man was dumbfounded now. Then Swami started turning around and asking all the youngsters and students there, "Can anybody tell me what is Swami's mission?" And everybody was quiet. And then Swami said, "I am not a missionary, sir. I am not a missionary," Swami said. Then Swami said something which was very, very profound. He said, "There is only one mission that I have. There is only one mission with which every incarnation of God comes down to earth. There's only one mission with which every noble soul walks this earth. And that is to lead each one of you to your truth. That alone is my mission. Not to build hospitals, not to run universities, not to send speakers to Australia. It is to take each one of us to our truth, to show us who we really are." And if Swami was here, he would have said, to boomerang back to the source, right? So the question often comes, what path do we take? Right? That's the topic that's been given to me. They say, how do you choose a path? And we all know, Swami has said this, SAI, S-A-I stands for service, adoration, and illumination. So can I pick any one of that? Can I do any one of those paths? How long should I stick to a path? Can I shift in between? Well, this gets too boring, so let me do something else for some time. Swami makes it very, very clear that there is no distinction. I still recall the first time I picked up Swami's Jnana Vahini. Right? It's supposed to be an extended discourse on the path of wisdom. Okay? Jnana Marga means the path of knowledge, the path of wisdom. And I was surprised at the number of times Swami mentions in that literature the value of bhakti or devotion. Here's a book on the path of Advaita, Jnana, that's what we think. But Swami kept on repeating how important a role bhakti or devotion plays in this path. So when it comes to Swami, there is no distinction between, that's all in our mind, karma, jnana, bhakti, dhyana. If you have a few more parts, you can add to that. For Swami, there is no distinction. I always like to give this example. Those of you who have been to Prashantinilya will probably be able to relate to it. In Parthi, we have something which is called the Gopuram Road. Right? We all take that road every day to enter the Prashantinilya Ashram through the Gopuram gate. Just because the road is named after the destination, it does not make the road the only way to reach the destination. Right? And if you know Parthi, you could come from the main road and enter the Gopuram. You could come through the Samadhi road and enter the Gopuram. It's just that the road is named after the destination. It's no way any special. Right? So just because a road is named after the destination, which is jnana or wisdom, jnana marga doesn't become any special than any of the other paths. So if someone is saying, oh, you can do all your bhajans, but you have to do Advaita, you have to go in great Vedanta, then it's a misunderstanding. But at the same time, we cannot sit here and say, I am only going to do bhajans, and when somebody comes and sings bhajans, I am going to cry. And that's all I need, and that's all I do. Because what has Swami said? Swami said, my mission, be it building a hospital, be it asking you all to do seva, or be it asking you all to do bhajans, my mission is to ensure that you turn back to your truth. So if that is not happening, then there is something that we are missing out. This is a wonderful story I heard, and I've seen it being depicted in the form of a drama in front of Swami, and some of you might be aware of it. It's the story of this great devotee of Vithala. His name itself is Namdev, right? Because he's all the time in Namasparana. Chalo, Namdev. So he's a devotee and he connects to the Lord only through Namasparana. All the time, Vithala, Vithala, Vithala. He's singing songs, he's singing bhajans. So much so that Lord Vithala manifests in front of him. And he lives with that communion with the Lord for many, many years. He would go to the temple of Vithala and Vithala will appear in front of him. He will be at his home and Vithala will appear in front of him. For many of us, that would appear like, that's where I want to get, right? So is that the destination? The story goes that there is a congregation of saints. All the contemporary saints, they all belong to the present state of Maharashtra. They all come together and they have a congregation. And they're all, the who's who of the saint land, if you could put it that way. Because there is Namdev, there is, I think, Sopan Muktabai, they're two saints. There's one Safta Mali, who's supposed to be a gardener who becomes a great saint. There's a Gora Kumhar, who's a potter who becomes a great saint. And all of these people come together and they're discussing about the Lord, they're discussing about the spiritual path. Then all of a sudden, one of them look at this potter saint of the Lord, Gora Kumhar, and they say, you're a potter, you know very well when the pot is baked. So here are many pots in front of you. Can you find out which one of us is baked and which one of us is unbaked? And how does a potter check if the pot is baked? He's got something like a small cricket bat kind of a thing, and he goes around patting the pot. And there's a particular very sonorous sound which comes, and they say, okay, this pot is done. So this saint picks up that implement of his, goes around this group, tapping each one of them on their head. And each time he taps, there's a sonorous sound which comes out. This one is baked. This one is baked. This one is baked. Finally, he comes to Namdev, the great devotee, the quintessential bhajan singer, who cannot stop doing Namasmarana. The Lord appears in front of him, and he takes this bat, pats it on his head, and instead of a nice clink, he hears a thud. And he said, here is an unbaked pot. He said, this pot is not yet ready. And this devotee gets very offended. He said, who are you to tell me that I am unbaked? Right? How dare you say that I am unbaked? I have communion with the Lord. I'm constantly in touch with my Vittala. Who are you to tell that I have not yet reached? So he goes back home and he says, all of you are fools. And you're up to some mischief, and he goes away home. And when he goes home, Lord Vittala comes. And he says, Nama, what happened? Why are you looking so dull? So he explains the whole thing. He said, jokers, this is what they did. They're saying that I'm an unbaked pot. And is that a way you test a saint? Right? That's no way to say, test a saint. That would have been interesting. After the convention, you could have had one person sitting at the door. As everybody's going out, tap on the head. Okay, this one's baked. You don't have to come for the next convention. So he says, this is not the way how you test a person's spiritual progress. So I'm really upset with that. So Vittala is silent for a moment. And then Namdev looks at Vittala and says, Lord, why are you quiet? And he says, it's true. You are unbaked. Oh, Nama is very, very hurt. Here is my Lord who's joining them in ridiculing me. He feels very hurt. He said, Lord, what have I done? I've always thought of you. I've always done whatever I've done, offering it to you. Why are you saying this? He says, I will not be able to explain it to you, but I will tell you how to figure it out. And he tells him, you go, there's this one particular place, and there's a great saint. His name is Visobha. You go and meet him, he says. Go and meet this saint. So this man goes in search of this Visobha, and after a long journey, he comes to one place where under a tree, there's an old man with a huge beard lying down. And the way he's lying down, the posture is very funny because he's lying prostrate with his legs on top of a lingam, right? A representation of Lord Shiva. There's a linga and he's put his legs right on top of the linga and he's like having an afternoon siesta. So he gets very offended. He said, oh, what are you doing, you stupid man? Don't you know that that's a symbol of divinity? And the old man opens his eyes and says, oh, have I put my leg on a linga? I didn't realize that. Son, can you do me a favor? Can you just take my leg and put it down? I'm too old to do it myself. So Nama goes to him, he lifts his leg and he puts it down. And the place where he puts it down, another lingam appears. He's surprised to see that. So he takes the feet again, he puts it on another place, another lingam appears. And wherever he would put this Visobha-Kecha's feet, there would be a lingam appearing there. And all of a sudden it strikes him. Brilliant idea comes. He sits down, he takes the master's feet and he puts it on his chest. At that moment, he sees what he had not been seeing all this while, like Sister Punamuli was saying this morning. He realizes that the Master, the Lord, was not different from him. He and the Master was one. So he goes back to his hometown, and now he doesn't go to the temple. Why would he go to the temple when you know that Swami and me are one, right? So after a few days, Vittala comes. Right? What happened? Why have you not shown up? And the moment he sees Vittala, he says, you thief, you cheated me all this while. You never told me that you and I are one. He said, now I know, and now I will not be fooled. And then Vittala says, now you're a baked pot. And he says, having realized this truth, go around and sing my name. And there's a wonderful, this is about devotional singing, right? It's not about the music. It is not about the tears. It is not about thinking of Swami, and it's very easy to become very emotional thinking of Swami, right? We're all there. But never to forget sight or lose sight of the fact that we're trying to understand this reality, who we are. And the story goes that at one point, Namdev was sitting and he's writing his poetry. He used to write beautiful poetry in Marathi. He's writing all of his abhangas in praise of Lord Vittala. So his wife, as dutiful as all wives are, she would always pack his lunch and give it to him, because you don't know where he is. One day he'll sit in the temple, one day he'll be up in the mountain. So she'll always pack his lunch before he leaves home. He'll take this, sit wherever you are and do your namasmana, but please eat your lunch. So one day he's sitting in a busy marketplace and there is this parcel of rotis, right? Dry, thick rotis in a cloth tied up next to him. And as he's sitting there and writing these abhangas, one dog comes, picks up one of the rotis and starts running. And what does Namdev do? He takes to his heels, he starts running after the dog. And the whole town is seeing this funny sight of this dog taking a roti and running and the saint chasing the dog. And they're all wondering what happened to him. We thought he's a great man, he's a great saint. He's running after a piece of roti and that which the dog has taken it away. Why can't he just say, let it have it? So he chases this dog all around the town and finally comes to a point. And the dog, I think, is out of breath. So the dog stops. And then he looks at the dog and he says, Vittala, the rotis are dry. I've brought ghee for you. He looks at the dog and says, Vittala, here is ghee for you because that roti is very dry. And then the dog says, O Nama, I could not escape your eye even in this form. Right? So when we do bhajans, that is the purpose. When we do seva, that again is the purpose. Right? That is what we are trying to reach. Swami would often say, what is the difference between doing seva in the Satyasai organization and elsewhere? This is the difference. We are not trying to serve anybody. We are always, every day, wherever we are, only trying to serve Swami. And the other person is only incidental and instrumental. Right? So does bhakti have no role in all of this? Of course it does. Right? Because when we were all students, Swami would often come and say, keep your focus on me. Constantly keep thinking of Swami. Keep Swami's figure on your mind. And Swami would even go to the extent of saying, I've taken such a beautiful form so that you can always think of me. Right? So it's so easy to fall in love with Swami. That's what Swami would say. I've taken such a beautiful form, now why you want to sit and think of Shiva and all of that. And Swami had once come and told the student, meditation, very easy. Close your eyes, think of Swami. Think of Swami's beautiful hair. Slowly come down and think of Swami's broad forehead. Come down and think of that small bump in between Swami's brows. Look at those beautiful eyes. Imagine that wonderful nose which probably will not look as beautiful on anybody else's face, right? But everything together, that smile. And then Swami said, then there's the neck. And zoop, you can come off to the feet. There's no paraphernalia in between. Because he said, if you have to think of Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva, you have to think of this hand, what is there in this hand, what is there behind. He said, see, I've made it so simple for you. Just think of me. But the same Swami who said this, one of my teachers was saying that he was brought up in this idea that you should always think of Swami, always crave to have Swami's presence, be next to Swami, speak to Swami. One day Swami calls him for an interview, all alone. Usually he'll be part of a group, but one day Swami calls him all alone. And Swami takes him inside and he goes inside the interview room, Swami follows him. Swami closes the door, latches, turns to him. And Swami says, how long are you going to run behind this form? How long are you going to run behind this form? And he said it was so unsettling because Swami, you had taught us this. You had taught us to be devoted to you. Swami said, yes, now it's time. How long are you going to run behind this form? Right? So it is not that devotion does not have a role, but if a devotee does not become a jnani, the pot is not baked, the fruit is not ripened. Right? That's precisely what Swami says in Untitled. He says the raw fruit is bhakti and karma, the ripened fruit is jnana. Right? In fact, I came across this wonderful verse which another great saint of Maharashtra, Tukaram, he writes, he's supposed to be a great devotee, right? He's supposed to be someone who's constantly singing the name of the Lord. In fact, once, it seems when Swami was talking to the students, he said, Tukaram is a great Advaitin, Swami said. He's a great jnani. And look at these beautiful verses that he writes. He writes, of course, I'm not going to do it in Marathi. If Amai can sometime do it, maybe he'll do that. I'll read out the meaning of that. He says, smaller than the smallest atom and infinite like the sky is Tuka. I swallowed my body and this delusory form of the entire universe with it. I gave up the triad of the knower, known, and the knowledge, and the self-effulgent supreme revealed itself like a lamp in a lit pot. Now, this body that is called the Tuka remains only for others' welfare. What a beautiful thought. These are words of a devotee. He's saying, I've swallowed this body, which means I've transcended this body. And when I transcend this body, I transcend the whole illusion. Now I don't need this body, but I retain it to serve others. So can we parcel devotion and keep it aside? It's not worked. It's now time to look within and start seeing deeper into the truth. There's another very interesting story. This time the story is about another devotee, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And we all know him. He's so attached to the mother. He's all the time crying like a baby, and he's so very drawn to that form of the mother. And he's like a child in the mother's lap, right? So one day, a great Advaitin, Vedantin from the Himalayas, he comes along and everybody's talking about this great saint, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So he wants to go and see who's this child. And he comes there and he's distraught to see him crying like a baby in front of the statue of the mother. And he's behaving like a child. And then he calls Ramakrishna and he says, what are you doing? You're such a fool. Don't you know that the form of the mother is a Maya? Don't you know she is also an illusion? And Ramakrishna is very hurt by this. He said, how dare you say this to me? And he goes crying to the mother. He says, he's shedding tears and mother appears in front of him. And the mother asks, what happened? Why are you crying? He says, this fellow, his name was Totapuri. Right? He was a great sannyasi. He says, this Totapuri comes and tells that you're an illusion. The mother smiles and says, yes, this form too, however sweet it may be, it is an illusion. So now Ramakrishna goes back to Totapuri and he says, Master, accept me as a disciple and teach me to go beyond this illusion. So Totapuri sits Ramakrishna down and makes him meditate. And every time Ramakrishna would meditate, he would go into a samadhi very easily. But then the mother's form would come in between. And Totapuri would ask Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, what do you see? I see the beautiful form of my mother, he would say. And Totapuri would say, go beyond the form, go beyond the form. And he'd say, I'm not able to. At one point, he gets so frustrated, he takes a small piece of glass which is lying there and he makes a scar on his, between his brows. And he says, where it hurts, concentrate your mind on that point. And when the mother comes, take the sword of your discrimination and tear that veil. He says. That's exactly what Ramakrishna does. The mother comes in the form and he imagines himself taking the sword of discrimination and tearing it apart, and then he goes into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But here comes the surprise for the Advaitin. Seeing Ramakrishna go into that Samadhi, he wonders now, it took me 30 years to get to this state. How did he manage to do it in 3 days? And then Totapuri says, there is a value in devotion which I have to learn from Ramakrishna. So devotion is not out of place, devotion is not any lesser path. In fact, Swami says that is the best path, right? There is no better path than that. But all of these are together. But some things what Swami has given us in the form of his path are pretty mandatory, right? We've had wonderful bhajan workshops here. Well, you could be a bhajan junkie, right? If I could use that term. Oh, I'm always into bhajans. Oh, bhajan man, that's the thing, right? Every one of us need not be like that, but every one of us need bhajans. You could be a fitness freak, spending 3 hours, 4 hours in the gym every day, right? And they don't think about anything else. They only think about what goes in and how they build their muscles. You need not be a fitness freak, but every one of us need fitness, isn't it right? I might not spend 3 hours in the gym, but I need my morning walk, I need my morning yoga, whatever it is, to keep this body fit. So similarly, when you talk about seva, when you talk about bhajans, when you talk about all the other activities, you may connect to Swami through them and you may choose to do more of it. But even if you don't connect to Swami through them, you will have to do a little bit of it. Because each one of these has a role to play. We cannot say that, oh, I'm a devotee of Swami and not serve the society. And Swami wrote his very beautiful letter to his brother way back in 1947, and Swami was 21 years old. Swami wrote in that, it was basically a description of his avatar. He said, "Be the sadalakaina penubada toliginchi lemini bapute premanaku." He said, to alleviate the poverty of the poor and give them what they lack is the task I love to do. And what is love that does not do what the beloved loves? How can I say that I love Swami but not do what Swami loves? So some of these things we may connect to Swami and choose to do more of it, but even if we don't, we have to do a little bit of it. I once met a very interesting gentleman when we were going for Gram Seva as part of the alumni activity in Prashanti Nilayam. And we were traveling in one of these diesel autos, rickety rickshaws, and this gentleman was sitting in front of us, and my elder alumni brother was introducing that person to me. And he said, "Brother, do you know about him? He's a phenomenal person. You will never come across anybody like him." And this is the story he said. He would go around all places around Puttaparthi and do a lot of seva. And he would just go into a village, he would say, okay, they need this, and he would do something and he would give them that. He would try to help them out. So Swami was so pleased with him, Swami wanted to reward him. So one day Swami comes up to him and Swami materializes a beautiful ring and gives it to him. And what did this man do? The next village he goes to, he finds that they need a water tank or something. He sells the ring and builds a water tank and gives it to them. A ring materialized and gifted by Swami. And a few weeks later, Swami looks at his hand and he said, "Where's the ring? I gave you a ring." And he said, "Swami, this is what I did." Swami said, "Why did you do that?" And he waves his hand again and gives him another ring. He said, "Keep this." And again, this person goes around and finds some other village which had another need. He sells the ring and does whatever they had to be done there. And the third time, Swami again asks him, "Where's the ring? Why did you do that?" So he said, "Swami, what do? I saw a need and I couldn't keep quiet." And this time, Swami waves his hand and materializes a ring of a metal which can never be sold. Now you cannot do away with this. See, he must have done it with absolutely pure attitude. Otherwise, Swami's response wouldn't have been that. Right? You and I probably will not do that. Right? If Swami gives me something that will be more dear than life, we might not relate to Swami in such kind of seva. But nevertheless, we should do a little bit of seva anyway. So partially, when we are trying to figure out what we are supposed to do, our interests matter. Right? If you like music, as yesterday the brothers were saying, the organization has avenues for all kinds of interests. So if your interest is music, if your interest is bhajans, yes, you can do that. So your interest decides the composition of your path for most part. Also, the roles that we have to play will define the path that we have to take. Right? If you're a doctor, automatically a little bit of compassionate seva attitude has to come into that role that you play. as I always say, as I was telling Brother Shivendra, every occupation has a hazard, right? Occupational hazard. The occupational hazard of being a speaker is ego. You finish a talk, you go there and somebody says, "Oh brother, you spoke really well." Thank you. So we are always dealing with that. We have to constantly tell ourselves, "No, Swami, it was you who spoke. It was you who spoke. Not me, not me, not me." But just because I'm afraid of that ego, I cannot run away from the role. I have to play the role and deal with the problem. Right? So sometimes the roles define how we approach the path. But is there a general definition of what the path is all about? How do you go about your path? As I said, Swami was saying that the only reason why the Lord comes down is to take you back to your truth, to your reality. And it's, I think, a no-brainer that what stops us from going back to the reality? It is our mind. And what in the mind stops us? It is our ego. And Swami would say body consciousness, right? So there are several ways of looking at this. This is probably just one of the examples that I'm going to give. There's several ways of approaching this. What is the path? What are we trying to do? But since I was told the young adults have gone through the 1990 summer course, I have chosen to explain it in this way. So young adults, ready for a pop quiz? Swami gives a very beautiful analogy of the mind. He compares the mind to a day-to-day object that we use. What is that? Nobody? Swami compares the mind to a mirror. Right? Swami says the mind is like a mirror, and it's a very interesting way, even if we keep this in our mind, that the mind is a mirror, the way we will look at life will be very, very different. There's a very beautiful verse that Swami often quotes in his discourses, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari. Right? It's a verse from the Dakshinamurti Shloka, which means the whole world, as someone very beautifully explained it, imagine you're driving in your car, you're leaving a city behind, you're driving out of Sydney, you're driving out of Melbourne, whatever, you're driving out of the city, and in the rear view of your mirror, of your car, you can see the city behind you. Right? The lights of the city probably are behind you. So, the person who composes this, he says, the whole world is like you seeing a reflection of the mirror. None of us see the world directly. We all are seeing it off the mirror. And what is the mirror? It's our mind. So each time I speak to a person, I don't see the person. I see the person's reflection on this mirror. Each time you speak to me, you don't see me. You see my reflection on your mirror. And all the problem starts with the mirror. If it's a perfect mirror, no worries. You will see the world as it is. You will not run behind it. You will see a person as he is or as she is. But the problem is with the mirror. And Swami says the mirror has 3 flaws. Young adults, what are the 3 flaws? 3 flaws of the mind. Mala, Vikshepa and Avarna. It's not coming from a young adult. Right? Mala, Vikshepa and Avarna. It might sound a little technical, but it's a very interesting idea. Forget the Sanskrit, but it's a very interesting idea. He says you have a mirror. The mind is like a mirror. And this explains another concept which oftentimes we get confused. Swami says that no, you're not one but 3. Right? Swami says who you think you are is the body, who others think you are is the mind, and who you really are is the Atma. So often we wonder, why is what others think I am is the mind? Because I am witness to my thoughts more than anybody else. The reason is this, because when people look at you, they look at your reflection in their mirror, and they are actually looking at you through your mirror too. It's a bit complex, right? Imagine I'm here, I have a mirror next to me, and you're standing there, and you have a mirror with you. So I am looking at this reflection. The reflection I'm seeing is actually of the mirror. And what is on the mirror? It is you. Right? It's a double reflection which is happening. So imagine the amount of confusion. And that explains why we have so many problems when we interact with each other. Right? First of all, we don't understand each other. And then we are looking at each other through our mirror, through your mirror. And if the mirrors have flaws, that's how much more confusing it gets. So Swami says this mirror has 3 flaws. And one of the things he says is mala. Mala is, sounds like a difficult word, but it is nothing but a thick layer of dust on the mirror. It's the most irritating thing, right? You know, thick layer of dust, or you have these watermarks on the mirror, and you're not able to see your reflection clearly. So Swami says mala is that dirt on the mirror. How does the mirror of the mind become dirty? It is because of the actions that we've done over many, many lifetimes. So that adds, all the bad actions that we've done, add a layer of dirt to the mirror. And Swami also says it is based on the food that we eat. And that explains why Swami lays so much emphasis on not eating non-vegetarian food, on not eating very tamasic food, and not intaking intoxicants. Because Swami says, imagine you're trying to clean the mirror, but on the other hand, you're dirtying it through all of these habits. So Swami says, what you take in the form of food and in the form of your senses dirties this mirror. So Swami says, to deal with mala, you have to ensure that no more dirt comes onto it. So have good company, see the right things, read the good books. Right? I'm just saying all of this because these are all essentially part of the path. And Swami has never made us follow anything which is irrelevant. And no part of Swami's message is irrelevant, and if we think so, we have not understood it. Right? So Swami says, see good, be good, do good, hear good, don't gossip, don't talk ill about others. All of this is because you don't want to dirty this mind even further. That's only going to make it even more complex to us. Right? And another very important point, the food is not only about, is it organic, is it vegan? No, that is not the only thing. How do you procure the food? Have your actions been righteous? How have you earned your living? Have you earned it in a righteous manner? Because those things also get into the food. And when you eat that food, it adds to the mala. So one is you stop the mirror from getting dirtier, and the other thing is give it the right kind of inputs. So Swami says, read the right kind of literature. Listen to more of Swami's discourses. Read more about Swami. Because these are ways by which you're also cleaning the mirror. So that is mala. And next comes vikshepa. Vikshepa is nothing but, imagine you have a mirror, you're standing in front of it, and the mirror is constantly shaking like that. Is it of any use to us, a mirror that constantly shakes? So Swami would say, vikshepa is the wavering nature of the mind. It is not able to stay in one place. So you have to still the mind. So how do you still the mind? Swami gives a very beautiful analogy, which I'm sure the mothers will be able to relate to. Swami says you have a little child at home, and the child is running all over the place, right? From this room to that room to the garden and all over the place, and you want to feed the child. You've got food on a plate and you're trying to feed the child. So Swami says, what is the first thing that you do? You have to run behind the child, catch the child, make him sit on a chair, and probably strap him up so that he doesn't run further. And then you feed. So Swami says you're trying to feed something which is good to the mind. So it's very important to steady the mind first. You have to catch the mind and make it sit. So the steadiness of the mind, of course, the perfect stillness like what they spoke in the morning, that will come very later. But even for the basic works that we do, we need a little bit of concentration and one-pointedness, right? So Swami says, the first thing is you have to catch the mind and make it sit down. And for that, what do you need? All the meditation practices that we do, and Swami would say, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the Navaveda Bhakti which we heard Swami narrate, forms of worship, even sitting down and doing something very ritualistic, it's because your mind is all concentrated on what you're doing. It steadies the mind, right? So even if I'm not a person who can relate to rituals, I'm sure many of you would be like that, but it doesn't matter. Sitting down through a process, if someone else is doing a homam or yajna, or someone else is doing a very elaborate Buddhist worship, it will really help for us to sit there and be a part of that worship, because it has a role in this mind training that we are going through, right? So Swami says Vikshepa is that. Of course, you might say that, I have other forms of meditation. The work that I am doing is drawing all my attention. But if you're able to do a good work, if you're able to do seva, or if you're able to do something spiritual in the form of steadying the mind, it's a double bonus, right? You're taking care of Mala and Vikshepa. So what you're doing, if you're sitting with your textbook and studying, yes, that will also help your steadiness. But if you're able to sit down and do Namasmarana or do Dhyana or meditation and think of Swami, it's a double advantage. You're steadying your mind, and also you're ensuring that the mind is also getting cleaned in the process. And the third thing is is the business end, right? Swami says, okay, you have cleaned the mirror, okay, you managed to mount the mirror on a steady wall and it's not shaking, but somebody comes and puts a cloth over the mirror. You still cannot use it. And Swami says that is avarana. If you put a black cloth over the mirror, and Swami equates it to our misunderstanding of who we really are. When I think I'm the body, when I think I'm the mind. So we've got the alignment of the mirror completely wrong. I'm looking at the mirror, but it is not showing me. It is showing something else. And I'm thinking it's me. So that has to be fixed. And Swami says avarana is an offshoot of pride. Before we probably come to that, the spiritual journey, when we're talking about the path, is twofold. We can talk of it as being twofold. One is spiritual transformation, or simply put, transformation. Self-transformation is the first leg of the journey. The second leg of the journey is self-discovery. To become good, to become a good person, to become a pure individual is very, very important. But we cannot stop at that. We will have to go to the second leg of the journey, which is self-discovery. And that's why there is this beautiful work called the Brahma Sutra. Right? Swami has also written Vahini on that. Sutra Vahini is a commentary on the Brahma Sutra. It's a very, very profound work. There's this saint who comes along and he says, oh, there are too many Upanishads and they're telling all kinds of things, let me compile all of them to one. So that's the Sutra Vahini for you. Right? It's supposed to be a very profound work. And you know how the work begins? Very interesting. The first line of a book, it starts with Athato Brahma Jignasa. Brahma Jignasa means the quest for the Brahman within, the quest for the divinity within. Athato means after this, the quest for the Brahman begins. That's how the first line of that verse begins. It says Athato Brahma Jignasa. After this, you can start the path of self-discovery. After what? And Swami very beautifully explains, till you have become a good person, till you become a guileless person, till you become a selfless person. You should never want to harm another to benefit yourself. Swami said these are the basic qualities, so that's why Swami kept repeating, be good, do good, see good, do to your neighbors what you would want them to do to you. Right? These are all basic tenets. Without this, there cannot be self-discovery. In fact, self-discovery is a path which will test your goodness. I'll give you a typical scene. I go to a counter where there's a lady behind the counter and I'm buying something and she gives me wrong change. She gives me more money than I should have. And I come away from the counter and I look at it and I see that she's giving me more change. What would we do? We go back and give it to her and say, Madam, I think you didn't see that you're giving me more. That's basic goodness. I think we all have that. Now imagine I'm standing on the same row. In front of me there's a very elderly gentleman or an elderly lady who's there, and this lady behind the counter is being very, very rude to this lady. She's being very nasty, and you're looking at this and saying, how dare she talk to this person like this? How unkind of her. And then you go to the counter and she shouts at you also, she yells at you also, and you're so bitter with that lady. And now she gives you extra change. You'll think a little, right? She deserves it. Why would I go back and give the change to her? Which means our goodness and morality is dependent on who is in front of us. My nature is being defined by who's around me and their nature. Can I call it my nature then? Right? So when we go through this path of self-transformation, it is tested in the path of self-discovery. Swami, I'm not the body. The next day you'll get a fever. Right? That's when it gets tested. Are we really able to be like that? Are we able to be kind when we are uncomfortable in the physical body? So Swami says it's very important. Self-transformation is as important as self-discovery. You cannot try to reach out to self-discovery without transforming yourself. You cannot say, I'm a good person and I'm happy. We have not come here to become really good people. We've come here to find out who we really are. Right? That's the whole idea. So Swami gives a very beautiful way of dealing with this. If you look at it, how do you define ego? How do you define body consciousness? There's this very little story which I heard. A spiritual aspirant, he goes to a master and he tells the master, Master, please accept me as your disciple. Tell me what I should do to realize myself. And the master says, who are you? He tells a name, and he says, I'm Ramappa or something. Typically names which Swami would choose. He says, Swami, I'm Ramappa. And he says, that is your name. Who are you? So who are you? So he says, that is your name, but who are you? Right? That's the question he asks. This man says, I'm a businessman. That's your profession. Who are you? And he says, I'm so-and-so's son. That is your antecedents. Who are you? So everything in life that we think is me is actually mine. It is not me. I think I am a speaker, but being a speaker is my role. I think I am a brother, but being a brother is my role. I think I'm a father, I think I'm a daughter, I think I'm a mother, I think I'm a grandmother. All of these are only roles that we play. Right? This is not me, but this is mine. So if you really look at it, the ahankara does not have any definition or form at all. Again, why is another pop quiz? Swami says a very beautiful thing about the hierarchy of subtlety. Swami says the most gross, not gross, also gross. The most gross is the physical body. Subtler than the physical body are the senses. Subtler than the senses is the mind. Subtler than the mind is the intellect or buddhi. Subtler than the buddhi is the ahankara. And this hierarchy is very, very important to keep in mind. We all have these amazing smartphones these days which have very, very scratch-resistant screens, right? What you call Gorilla Glass and all that. So once I was just interested in finding out how did they make that glass, and how is it that it doesn't get scratched. And apparently there's something called the Mohs rating of hardness, MOHS, don't look it up, Mohs rating of hardness, which means there is some substance, it has been given a particular rating. Only those substances which have a higher Mohs rating can cause scratches on this. right? So what they've done is they've just taken a glass and they've fabricated it in such a manner that its Morse rating is higher than most of the metals that we use in our keychains, right? So I can put a mobile phone and a key in it. The keys will never scratch the screen because it's got a different Morse rating. Very similarly, only what is more subtler can have an influence on what is gross. So if I want to fashion my body in such a manner that it is healthy, I have to make up my mind. Unless I make up my mind, I'm not going to be able to wake up every morning and do my exercise, right? So to deal with the problems of the body, the mind can be used. To deal with the problems of the mind, the intellect can be used. But the ahankara is subtler than all of this. Nothing that you do with your body and your mind can actually do anything to the ahankara. That's what it means. So are we all at sea? But then Swami says, forget ahankara for now. But what I spoke about as mindness, Swami would say mamakara, right? The idea of mind, that is in the mind. That can be dealt with. The fundamental ahankara cannot be touched, but the mamakara, or the idea of this is mine, this is my family, this is my country, this is my person, this is my car, that can be dealt with. Right? So Swami says that you have to deal with. And when you have mamakara, what happens? Swami says, you know, this is my family, so what do? I have to do something to take care of this family. So I go out and make a living. And then I say, well, this is the house that I have built with my own effort. Then Swami says it brings doership. What Swami would call kartritva. Complex word. Took time for me to learn the pronunciation. So Swami would say doership. The moment you have, from ahankara, you have mamakara, which is mindness. And from the mindness, now you have doership. And when you have doership, almost like tagging along with it comes the idea that I have done, I must enjoy. So Swami would say doership and enjoyership comes together. Kartritva and bhoktritva. I have put my effort, I want to enjoy it. So Swami says, do what you have to do to remove all of these things. And one of the beautiful things that Swami has given for us to deal with that is seva. Right? When you go out and help a person whom you don't know who that person is, and that person is never going to be able to return the favor. So you're doing to absolutely sublimate the idea of mindness. I'm not doing this action for anything that is going to give me anything, but I'm just going to do it out of love. And when you do that, the doership also will eventually, you do it purely. In fact, there's a beautiful story that I recall. One of my friends was saying, they came as a part of a youth group to Swami, and they would come and tell Swami that Swami, we've done this particular seva in this particular village. And Swami would feel very happy. He said, oh, very nice, very nice. So they got the clue. So Swami is happy to hear this. So they went back, they did more seva, they came back, they told Swami, Swami was even more happy. And then they said, you know, if Swami is happy to hear, Swami would be happier to see. So the next time they started taking photographs and videos, and they would make an album and come and show it to Swami. And Swami would see that album and, you know, his heart would be bursting with pride. Swami would say, very happy, very happy. And the album started becoming thicker and thicker with Swami's inspiration and encouragement. It came to a point when the album was really thick. They had to put that huge book on Swami's lap. And they were showing, and Swami would ask, what is this? What is this? What activity is this? So then the boys were saying, Swami, we did medical camp in this place. Swami, we did Balvika's program in this place. Swami, we did a social elevation program, or whatever. So we did this, we did that, we did this. So Swami was looking at all the pictures, and Swami said, oh, you did all this? What did I do? Swami said, you did all this? What did I do? Swami asked. And it struck them like a thunderbolt. They all put their hands together and said, Swami, you did all this. He said, Swami, you did all this. We were just there, dispensing the love and grace. Right? It's because when we get into the seva, and with all of these attitudes which you mentioned, you know, Swami would say, everything is part of that process. Discipline is important. bhajans are important. Your own personal sadhana and reading and meditation, all of that is important. And when you do all of that, the mind starts becoming steady. And with that, slowly you will start seeing what the world really is. There will be no illusions in front of us. And when I see my body, I will see my body as my body, not me. Right? So all of this will work. We cannot pick and choose and say, no, tomorrow onwards, 4 hours of self-discovery. Just will not work. And just because I said, Swami would often say, all the problem starts with attachment. It's another very beautiful story I always love to narrate. There's this man who's endlessly crying in a village. A sadhu comes to that village and he asks the man, what happened? Why are you crying? And the people tell the sadhu that, this man's been crying for the past 3 days because he lost his wife. So the saint says, okay, let me go and counsel that man. And he goes to him and he says, what happened? Why are you crying? He says, my wife died. That's all right, but why are you crying? I don't know if that man was a married man who took to sannyas. So he said, why are you crying? He says, because my wife died. Oh. So he says, I heard that there was another lady who died a month ago. Did you cry like this for her? He says, no, I didn't cry like this because this is my wife. So what are you crying for? Because she's dead. Can't you see that? She's dead and I'm crying for that. And then the master says, you're not crying because she died. You're crying because you believe that she's yours. Because it is your wife you're crying. Because ladies are there, so many ladies have died in your village. You didn't cry for every one of them. So death is not making you grieve. Death is not the cause for your grief. But this idea that this is mine is causing the grief. So somebody would say that everything starts with this idea of mamakara or mindness. So what is the easiest thing we can think of? So what am I supposed to do? Just drop everything and run away. Right? Become a sannyasi. You're not my mother, you're not my father, you're not my wife, you're not my husband. That seems to be the easiest thing, right? But the beauty is, one of the most profound messages that Swami has given is that he does not approve of that. One of my seniors, who was also my teacher in college, he was telling, once Swami called him to give a talk in front of Swami, and he was speaking, and he would often have this habit of starting with a song, starting with a verse or a shloka. So he started. He said, there's a particular verse in the Bhaja Govinda, which is Sura Mandira Taru Mula Nivasa Shaila Bhutala Majigam Vasa. I'll tell you the meaning of that. So he says, he recites this, or rather he begins to recite this, and Swami says, stop. What are you saying? He says, Swami, not me, Adi Shankara has said this. What is the meaning of that verse? Sura Mandira Taru Mula Nivasa means, I will go and live in a temple. Shaya Bhutala Majinam Vasa means I will sleep on the hard ground, I will wear a deer skin, which means I'll become a sannyasi. And I will give up all my attachments and I will leave the society and go. And Swami stopped him and Swami said, that is not my message. Why are you quoting that? Very clearly, Swami said, that is not my message. What is Swami's message? Swami reminded him, head in the forest, hands in the society. You can say that, oh, mamakara is the problem, mindness is the problem, so none of you belong to me now anymore. Swami says, no, that will not work. It is not so easy. That's why I find this very, very fascinating. Maybe I'll make a short reference to the Bhagavad Gita. Swami says, where did the Bhagavad Gita start? What was the problem? Here was this prince who's a brilliant warrior. Suddenly he started becoming nervous because he felt the people in front of me are my people. Drishtva Swajanam Krishna, he says, I am seeing my people in front of me. So the problem is mamakara. But then Swami says, what is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita? What is the essential precept of the Bhagavad Gita? Swami says, take the first word of the first verse, take the last word of the last verse, put them together and you get the phrase Mama Dharma. Right? Swami says, that is the message, do your duty. So it's a very paradoxical reply to a problem. Why? What is my problem? My problem is, this is my brother, this is my father, these are my people, these are my friends, those are my enemies, right? So Krishna tells him, use the same thing and define your role in society. She's my mother, I have a role towards her. This is my husband, I have a role towards him. Don't discard mamakara, but use the mamakara to define your role. To remove mamakara, you use mama dharma. So Swami says, take this thorn of mama dharma, remove the thorn of mamakara, and then discard both away. Right? Because that's what Krishna says. In the end, discard all your idea of dharma, sarva dharma, parityaja. He says, give up whatever idea that you have of what is your duty and come to me. So Swami says, take this thorn, remove this thorn, and throw both away. So this is the path that Swami has given all of us, and whether we realize it or we don't, we are all on the path, doing the right thing, but probably a little more consciously if we do. That's why nothing that Swami says is impractical. If I am feeling it is impractical, then there's something wrong with me. Nothing that Swami says is irrelevant for the age. If I find it irrelevant, I'll have to check my eyes. So, as devotees, I think we should strongly believe if Swami has said it, there must be a reason. Let me go and explore the reason. Let me find out why. We can never discard anything by saying that, no, this is irrelevant. This part of the message, I don't know why Swami said that, right? But I think I'll have time for one last beautiful story. This happened to one of my classmates. This classmate of mine was drawn to Swami because of the wonderful seva activities Swami's organization does. So he became a part of a Sevadal group. He joined them in all the activities they would do. And he young boy, so he was very energetic. So he loved this movement of service that Swami had started. And that's how he came close to Swami. And eventually he became very devoted to Swami. Swami would talk to him often. Then he became a student of Swami, right? And he was my classmate. So one day Swami walks up to him and Swami asks him a very interesting question. Swami says, hey, what were you born for? Right? Swami asks, what were you born for? And then this boy says, oh, Swami, to be with you. Some gentle answer. Swami said, hey, tell properly. And then Swami asked, rephrase the question, because we all belong to the generation of multiple answers, right? We're not used to descriptive answers or essay writing. So Swami said, okay, I'll put it in a way that you'll probably be able to answer. Swami said, "Nuvu deni kosam puttavu. What were you born for?" And Swami says, were you born to earn a lot of money? Were you born to take care of your family? Were you born to do seva? Or were you born to listen to what Swami says? So by the time he heard the word seva, he did not hear the fourth option, I think. He said, yes, Swami, I am born to do seva. He said, hey, tell properly. I will repeat the question. Again, Swami asked, hey, what were you born for? Option 1, were you born to earn a lot of money? Were you born to take care of your family? Were you born to do seva? Were you born to listen to what Swami says? Swami is leaking the answer. When he came to the fourth option, he was more pronounced and loud, hinting that I want you to say this. Like that incident of the boy trying to say A and Swami saying oh. So Swami is giving the multiple choices, and he's making it even more easier by leaking the answer. So he got the clue. He said, yes, Swami, I want to do whatever Swami tells me to do. Good. Now I'll ask again, Swami says. And Swami asked the same question again. What were you born for? Were you born to earn a lot of money? Were you born to take care of your family? Were you born to do seva? Or were you born to listen to Swami? He said, yes, Swami, I am born to listen to you. Right? And Swami said, yes. Today I have given you this role. You play this role. Tomorrow if I come and tell you, don't do any more seva, will you listen? He said, yes, Swami, I will listen. Swami said, yeah, then aren't you born to listen to Swami? So that's what Swami said. All of this path I can theorize. As I said, there are many ways of telling this. But at the end of the day, all that it takes is to love Swami, right? And as I always like to say, love him today, sleep, wake up tomorrow, love him more. Sleep tomorrow, wake up day after, love him more. Nothing else is required really, right? Because if you love him, everything is filled with love. Everything that you do for Swami, whether it is bhajans, whether it is seva, you will do it out of your love for Swami, right? It's not like, I like to do this, so I do this. I enjoy doing this. Yes, that's a good for a starter. But eventually we should be able to say, I do whatever I do it only for Swami. Right? And that is all it takes. But sometimes our preferences come in between. It's all right to start. But that every day wake up and we say, we're all congregated here. Some of you must be into Kundalini yoga or something, I don't know. And some of you must be into doing a lot of bhajans. Someone must be into, I'm always seva man, go seva. Right? Some of you might be like that. But we all have gathered here under Swami's name. Nothing else has united us. It is our love for Swami that has united us here. And that is all that matters. If we can love Swami and say, Swami, you say, I do. Whatever you say, I do. Right? Karishye vachanam tava. That's the last supplication that Arjuna makes. Oh Krishna, I've understood enough. You say, and I'll do. With that prayer that Swami brings us all to that state where we say, Swami, we are just waiting to just do whatever you say. Nothing more is required in this life. I offer this humble effort at Swami's lotus feet, and I thank you all for your very, very patient listening. Thank you.